This meeting of the Ripon Area School District Board of Education has been properly noticed in accordance with the Open Meeting Law and State Statute 19.84 and related legal references. Our district vision says, one of Wisconsin's finest school districts, fostering excellence for all through innovation. We keep that in mind as we meet. And we would like to begin with recognition of the first LEGO League state competition participants.
Walk closer. Thank you guys. It's okay. Walk closer. Your name?
I'm Thomas. I'm in 9th grade and I'm the mentor.
I'm Josh, and I'm in 6th grade and I've been through 2 years. I'm Nick. I'm in 7th grade. I've been in LEGO League for 5 years.
I'm Liam, and I'm in 5th grade. I've been in LEGO League for 2 years.
I'm Torin. I'm in 6th grade and I've been LEGO League, and I've been in LEGO League for 3 years.
I'm Derek. I'm in 8th grade and I've been in LEGO League for 5 years.
I'm Autumn. I'm in 7th grade, and I've been in LEGO League for 4 years.
Hi, Nick. I'm in 6th grade and I've been in LEGO League just this year.
I'm Gavin. I'm in 6th grade. I've been in LEGO League for 1 year.
Right, so we have a small presentation about the things that we've done in LEGO League, and so we'll do that real quick. So we're LEGO Multiverse, and this season we chose to resolve the problem of energy. So every year they give us a problem, and this year was energy, by improving a bladeless wind turbine that we purpose rebuilt. So the purpose is to be built in the median of Highway 41 from Flagler Left to Milwaukee. We got this idea after talking to Mr. Pritzwell when we took a field trip to Vines and Rushes this past year. So you will approve that? Thank you. At a regional competition, we won 2nd place award for a project idea.
This is our robot, and we built and we coded it ourselves to complete missions. This season we learned a completely new system of coding, which is sprite time instead of EVQs. We also contribute to our community, and this year we were photographed as part of the Ripon Public Library's renovation campaign packets. This spring we also presented to the 5th graders at Murray Park Quest in order to get them excited for the upcoming science fair. At our sectional competition, we won 1st place award for our core values.
Only 10% of all people who start in August FLL season will compete at state competition. We are very proud that this is the 3rd time that our team LEGO League has made it to state competition. This year we have received perfect scores all 3 with both core value judging and revision project judging. We are already looking forward to the next season.
Can I ask you a question? What does your robot do?
It completes missions like simple tasks like flipping levers or pushing pulling something.
So every year we're given a board that's the size of roughly 2 of these tables, like roughly, and there's a bunch of missions that you can complete. You don't have to. You get to choose how many missions you want to complete. The way you want to complete them, you have a time limit of 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So this robot has to go through this table, and you have to code it, so you can't use a controller to go through these missions and solve them, and essentially solve them.
Wow, that's cool.
Does your mission use like sensors?
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. This is really great. And you guys have you folks have perfect scores in all categories?
Yep.
No, except for robot design.
That's pretty darn good.
Do you want
Thank
to
you
tell
so
them the name
much.
of the categories that you had perfect scores in?
So you have core values and innovation. So core values is how will you work as a team. You will be judged through the entire competition, and the core values can actually go into gracious professionalism, how you treat other teams. So if you're helping other teams by maybe giving them a support candy, like you can do it, or like it's highly encouraged if somebody doesn't have the proper wheel part, you go over and you give them a spare wheel part. It's highly encouraged to do that. And you will get points for that. That's core values. Innovation is that project we showed you for like having the whole making a 5-minute presentation about what you're doing and showing that off. And so we got 4s, which are really hard to get, and I think everything.
That's great.
Yeah.
And what grades does this group?
It goes from E to B, 3rd grade, so that's why I'm the mentor, because I graduated through it.
So 3rd through 8th?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful.
For 5th grade.
5th through 8th, yeah.
No, it's both or 13, and yeah, but I think 4th is
Okay, wonderful, thank you.
Awesome.
Okay, we've got some certificates for you guys, but I didn't catch all the names, so we've got to help you. Your names? You are? Pardon? What's your name?
Nick.
Leo. I like that, I got it in the right place. Corn. Got things moving through Paris, good job. All right. Max. What's that, Max? And Gavin.
Thank you guys so much. That's really cool.
Good job, guys.
Thank you all, and thank you moms and dads for all of your support of the program as well. Have a great night.
Thank you, you too.
All right, we'll move on. We have no written comments and nobody signed up to speak, so next is to adopt the agenda. There's no objection to the order of items presented, we'll accept the agenda as it is. Any objection? All right, we'll move on. To announcements and contributions.
Alliance Laundry Systems donated their 3rd installment of $1,000 for a $5,000 pledge for the Ingalls Field Group. Silver Creek Dentistry submitted their 3rd installment of $4,000 for a $20,000 pledge for the Ingalls Field Group. And then the following individuals donated $250 or more to the Ripon Education Foundation: Janet Crook, Gary and Julie Bourne, Cindy and Rich Diener, Dawn and Brad Rasmussen. And so we're very thankful for that and appreciate those donations.
Definitely. Thank you much. And we have a special presentation with the mid-year dashboard report.
I'm going to invite our principals to come on up with me. Travis and Brian, you guys can come up too if you'd like. You're kind of at the end. Becky, if you don't want to sit by yourself, I'm okay too.
We thought we would all come up since this is really a team effort, and a lot of our team activities and next steps
So the mid-year dashboard report is really an intent just to inform the board on where we're at mid-year in comparison to where we were at in previous years, in this case, last year at the same time. But really with the focus on behavior, attendance, pupil service contacts, academic achievement, as well as just really, like I said, our key findings and what we are going to do from now until the end of the year to align with our continuous improvement philosophy for the district. So is
Do you
it
want
attached,
it
Jolene? Yeah, you can
Not
pull
on
it up.
this, not on this screen. Just give me, if you want to
Okay.
just keep on going,
Sure.
I'll do my Vanna White, okay?
Okay. So we have it listed starting with our 4 PS through 2. But again, a lot of the findings that we see at that level kind of carry over into our other levels as well. We are not going to go specifically through all of the charts because you have that at your fingertips to be able to view. What we really want to do is just focus on some of our key findings and just really talk a little bit about our next steps as soon as Jillian is able to pull that up. And I believe we have Rebecca also on to talk about Odyssey. And Rebecca, you're welcome to kind of fill in as we go as well.
Okay, thank you.
Again, I guess I will start always by just saying how super proud we are of all of our staff. The efforts that they continuously make to get our kids to where we are at is just so wonderful. And we appreciate that, as well as our leadership team and their efforts working with our staff. And I think you'll see that highlighted throughout our whole presentation today. Good job, Jolene. We got it up there. Okay, so again, as we take a look, you're going to see a lot of information, and like I said, we're not going to look specifically at the data that's in there. If you can scroll down, Jolene, to the key findings and next steps, we'll start with 4 PS through 2.
Okay.
Couple of slides down. There we go. Okay. And what we tried to do is we pulled in each of the different categories, and again, just kind of pulled out some of the highlights. And we'll talk through just a couple of those as you see those. I know you can read through them as well. All right.
So at our building, some of the big items that we have done a lot of work with this year have been in the behavior and pupil services contacts. We implemented a SMART lab. We had our staff attend a SMART training. We've had other staff go to that before. It's in Minnesota out of a charter school there called A Chance to Grow. And it's an acronym, Stimulating Maturity and Accelerated Readiness Training. And it's basically doing different physical movements to activate different parts of your brain and stimulate readiness to learn. Sometimes when we see that our kids are dysregulated and not ready to learn in the classroom, doing some of those different movements helps them regulate and make it so that everyone can learn at a high level in the classroom. And so we took our computer lab, which has, evolved over the years because we don't necessarily need a whole lab dedicated to computers anymore. And we've turned it into a SMART lab, and it's got a circuit that goes through it. Different aspects of the circuit are changed throughout the week, and the kids, they have a routine that they use when they come in there. Some of them come in for a soft start in the morning. Some of them come in because they're in need of regulation, and some of them come in as an earned break. And some of them need that movement before they finish up their day at Brave. And so it's kind of structured throughout the day, but we try to staff that with a pupil services person. And so that kids are able to come in and start to recognize on their own now when they're regulated and ready to go back to class. And so we've been able to see a lot of improvements in just being able to access instruction because our kids, their bodies are more ready to learn and be in the classroom. In addition to that, our pupil services team has been pushing into classrooms and helping classrooms teachers not only with their SEL lessons, but also Barlow Park Charter with their play workshop. It is a workshop format, and what we're finding is that there are a lot of skills that our kids missed out on due to COVID and their limited experiences with one another. And so the structure of the school is pretty timely in that we're able to back up and give some of those really important, very small SEL lessons that make a huge world of difference when they're interacting with one another, such as making a group plan, what happens when the group plan falls apart, and how to bring everybody back on track. So they've been doing a lot of support within the classrooms, helping teachers getting those lessons up and running. As far as academics, our numbers look pretty similar to what they have in the past. We continue to see a little bit of a dip in first grade, and then they boost back up when they hit second grade, because it all starts to click and gets pulled together. We are seeing more growth in the areas of phonemic awareness and phonics due to stronger shared reading practices, and also very specific lessons on some of the discrete skills from phonemic awareness and phonics within the classrooms. Some things that we want to continue to work on. We've been able to get intervention to some of our kindergarten students through Reading Corps this year, which is something that we've not been able to do in the past because we just don't have enough intervention slots. So we want to continue to do that and help our kindergartners get the best start that they can. We will also continue with doing our working with literacy practices, focusing on professional development and interactive reading along with phonics going forward, and then continuing with our SMART training, and then there's some other ideas that we have coming up and getting our kids ready as they move into kindergarten and 4PS next year.
As we mentioned, we have a tremendous focus on literacy at our 4PS grade 5 this year. We've done some extensive training with our staff, some learning from our own literacy leadership team, and that is something that we will continue for sure into next year with the focus on literacy and math. Okay.
Great,
We'll
thank you.
head to grade 5 children.
Ask a quick question. I
Yeah.
assume I should actually know this, but the acronym ODRS, what are those?
Office Discipline Referral.
Those would be more
It's a really
behavior.
good question. Thanks for asking.
In the 3-5 section, there's some overlap of what Tanya had mentioned and Chrissy as well. And so just kind of capitalizing a little bit in the behavioral section as well. Again, that ongoing work with our behavior interventionist, our full-time behavior interventionist, and just she continues to explore ways in which to best support our kids and the programming that goes with it. The SMART practices being part of that. The teachers also have SMART practices in their classroom every day that our school counselor and our behavior interventionist put together, and they become part of the routine within the classroom. So it really benefits everybody in addition to the lab experience that Tanya talked about. I'd also just like to mention our new bus company. They've been amazing in working with us in partnership, in problem solving, and supporting each other within some of our student needs. That's been huge. It's been really, really great. So I just wanted to be able to make mention of that tonight. And just I guess when you kind of talk about some of those challenges and things, I mean, we keep working with the behavioral needs overall. We have seen an increase with some of our special ed kids with more behavioral issues versus solely academics, so that does play a factor into some of it too. Our pupil service team just recently also implemented a new program called Close Gap, and it's really a 2-minute thing that our 5th graders are doing right now every day, and they have an opportunity to just be able to check in, and they're finding that things are coming right to them that they maybe wouldn't have had access to. So things that maybe some kids are just flying under the radar and we wouldn't have noticed, and then there's an automatic notification that comes to their classroom teacher as well as to our pupil service team. So that's been pretty neat. Starting with 5th grade, and then they're hoping to be able to implement that within the other grade levels over time too. 4th grade for sure, not sure how that'll go with 3rd grade, but we'll see how that goes. As far as achievement, we are really happy with the progress that our kids are making with our team working so incredibly hard. Part of that goes along with the ongoing CQA practices that we've done. Our math programming, we've done some work with varying interventions within math, but then the addition of the part-time math interventionist has been really huge in helping us with some of those really high needs with our more tier 3 kids, which we haven't been able to really tackle in the past, so that's been really important. Our reading interventionist, they continue to work together really hard, our title team, to be able to bring in some different trainings and things. One of those newer elements is an Orton Gillingham training that our team has done more training with, even with our special ed group, because what we're finding is that some of our special ed kids, they obviously need the intervention and very intensive, and this training is a pretty big deal. So they've been working through that and are working with our title team with that too, which has been really great. And then we just continue with, that team approach to working together to be able to reach our goals. It's really important that, classroom teachers are working with our special education teachers, with our EL, our GT, our title, our counseling, our math interventionists, that we work together to align our goals in our work, and that's been really helpful. Obviously, the professional development and collaboration days that we've had are invaluable to the work that we do as a team as well. Intervention-wise, I guess I would just make mention that, again, I talked about math intervention and that being great. Our reading intervention too. Both of our reading interventionists are serving, our full-time reading interventionists are serving about 25 kids each first semester, which is great. We have had more kids in tier 3 interventions, meaning kids who are, they have very intensive needs, and then that ends up meaning they can only take 1, maybe 2 kids at the most at that time. So it pared back a little bit on the numbers that they could take, but we're addressing the needs that are at the table, which is really good. So as far as next steps, as Chrissy said, we'll continue with our professional development in literacy and our curriculum adoption too within the area of literacy at both of our elementary schools. We'll continue with the math, behavioral, reading, and SEL interventions, and that small group support that is really essential. Small group work has become more and more and more important just to be able to address those varying needs. Again, those connections with our reading coach, our math interventionist, our pupil service team, it all just works really, really important together. So I think that's really like it in a nutshell. I think the rest of it would be a repeat of what she was saying. So, sure. Thank you.
And middle school.
All right, I'm just going to highlight a few things. First, looking at the behavior. We've been working pretty hard, myself, the behavior interventionist, counselor, on developing plans for many of our students. We do a lot of check-in and check-out, so we check in with them in the morning, then we also kind of check out with them at the end of the day. That seems to be going okay. I feel like we're making some progress with a lot of the students. It's been a kind of a tough start, first semester, but I think we're finally getting some things moving in the right direction. But again, like I said, it just takes time, and I think sometimes when they come from 5th grade to 6th grade, it's a big change for many of the students. And so when we start working with those kids, it just takes a little more time. So hopefully by the time we get to the end of their 6th grade year, they're more comfortable here at the middle school. So actually, we want them to actually be there after first semester, but I think we made progress with many of those. Pupil services, you see that they've been trained on biofeedback training. They just started that, which is a way to connect with some of these students who we're trying to help them with their needs. And basically what it does is it assists with self-regulation and tries to keep them calm. So we've been working on that quite a bit. I believe that's a program that we have, right? K-12, we're doing that all the way across the board. And all our counselors and school sites have been working on that as well. The other point I'd like to make is reading intervention and math intervention.
This has been something new we started this year. We did have intervention last year where we had a specific teacher that did that. If you remember, we had a reading specialist that came over and did the reading intervention, and then those positions kind of got cut, so, or just, we couldn't do it. So I came up with a different way to have our regular math teacher in each grade level take their supervision away from them, and that's when they do their intervention. And I was able to move the kids around who needed to have intervention to get that into their schedules. So I feel like that's been going pretty decent. I asked the reading teachers and the math teachers, and they were pretty happy with how that's been going. The one comment that I got from one of the math teachers that I thought was pretty, something that you don't think about is that the students who are in intervention are gaining more confidence in themselves in that. And not only that, then they're actually raising their hand in class instead of hiding behind, maybe that they don't get math. So that was pretty nice to see. So those kids are actually now, involved in that discussion in math. So I think that was a big point to put out there for you. Really, as far as next steps go at the middle school, we're just going to continue the things that I just kind of talked about. We keep focusing on the behavior part. I always tell Bill and Randy, I'm trying to get them ready so that they can survive in high school. Most of the time, by the time we get them there, I think it's all right. But it's just been tough. You can see where it says we have special education. We have 52 students right now in grades 6 through 8. That's a lot. And so that has been one of our biggest focus. And that's a focus area that we've been dealing with this year. So, but again, Becky's been helping me out in that area as well. So appreciate her time working with a lot of those students. Other than that, we're just going to continue on again with the study halls right now, and I think that's been a good change. Anybody have any questions at all about the middle school?
I do. Can you clarify your change in procedure when you no longer had the reading and math interventionist?
Right.
You shifted somebody.
What I did is, so every math teacher, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math teacher, they don't have a supervision, they don't have a study hall. So they have an hour every day that's just designated for that. And I'm able to move the kids around in those spots.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yeah. So what we do is we talk about that before the school year, and then also when the school year is going, we can make changes and I can move kids around with their schedules if they need that extra intervention. So it's been going pretty decent.
You also have several teachers who are seeking their intervention certificate.
Right,
For
yeah.
reading.
Mm-hmm.
Our middle school teachers often do focus on a specific subject, so they have that expertise, but this additional certification to do interventions is really helpful. They're learning a lot in terms of reading strategies and really how to help our students grow, and it's exciting to see that interest. So it's a great way for them to connect with the students that they already teach.
Yeah, we're making more connections
Right.
behind the scenes than just the class.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And high school.
I guess I first want to start out, I just want to say the high school reaps the benefits when you put dollars K-8. Now, there's not many high school teachers that will say that, or principals that will say that, but when you put the dollars in K-8, it really is nice for the high school. And I think you can really start seeing the results of all the time and efforts and services and everything that K-8 does to get us to where we're at the high school. I'll just kind of now, having said that, I'll just go through the, so thank you K-8 teachers, or K-8 principals, and all your staff. It really is appreciated. Attendance, very similar, right around 94%. Our attendance is usually due to chunks when kids are gone for either mental health or illness. It's usually chunks of time, and that kind of brings that down a little bit. But by and large, on a daily basis, our kids come to school. Behavior, we talked about this a little bit already. It's from all the interventions that happen, and then we get them here. We've also, it's kind of a post-COVID world, if you will, because kids are just readjusting now to what school's like. And BK, Mr. Kinzinger, and staff have really done a great job of really emphasizing classroom management and just kind of revisiting that. What does it look like? Being consistent. All the things that will help to run a classroom so kids can learn. Let's see. Our mental health screener, our pupil services team just do a phenomenal job of, I don't know what the percentage is off the top of my head, but they have a mental health screener in the fall. And I want to say it's around 80% of the kids that they do a mental health screener with. And then when they score a certain score, then we can make interventions right away, contact parents, try to get them the resources they need so that, again, they can be successful in school and more importantly in life. Achievement, failure rates extremely low, very proud of our staff. Now, certainly K-8, yes, I really appreciate them, but I really got to give a shout out to our staff at 9-12. They will work their tails off to help kids be successful. And it's just really, I'm really appreciative of all the work that they do to help kids achieve the grades that they want to achieve, or they're working to achieve. We have, I think, over 98% of the classes were passed, and that's amazing. We have a high percentage level on honor roll, and it's to our great kids, but it's also for our teachers do a wonderful job. We have, part of the intervention is we try to do a proactive approach to contacting parents. So far, we've made over 3,000 contacts to home, and with 2,400 of them being positive contacts. Trying to, just the, and when I say 2,400 are positive contacts, I call them remedial contacts, but they're really, I don't even think of them as remedial contacts. I think of them as positive contacts as well, because if a student is failing, if the teacher is taking the time to make a contact to the parents to try to get the student passing or getting better grades, maybe a D to a C, to me, that's a positive contact. That's a positive situation when you're having a teacher trying to contact the students or the parents to get the student where they can get better grades. We have after-school tutoring. We do grade check every Tuesday, really try to focus on, again, to try to hold the students accountable. We did goal sheets this year with the students or this semester to try to see, okay, these are the grades I want to get, or these are the things that I want to do in each class, maybe do it differently, so maybe I raise my grades a little bit. And really, next steps are kind of like Rick said, it's basically the things I've talked about before, just kind of continuing all the things that we've been doing and continue to do throughout the rest of the year. Any questions? All right.
Okay, Rebecca, if you want to share anything additional for Odyssey?
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. At Odyssey, we are celebrating this year when we first opened in 2019, our freshman students are now seniors. So they have spent almost their entire high school career with us, which is really exciting because we have seen the tremendous progress that these students have made during their high school career. One of the largest benefits of Odyssey that we have from little on, and this starts in the 4K grade levels, is our students have the same teachers for 4 years, as long as they stick with us. And that has really allowed us to work closely with those families and students, learn what works best for students, and partner with those families to really reap those benefits in student learning, which is a really, really important benefit, I think, at Odyssey. We have been working on implementing a better attendance and work completion, virtual participation policy. Seems like every time I attend my virtual school meetings, attendance and work completion is one of those hot topics that schools are just trying to figure out how to work with that best to make sure that kids are attending not only physically in their Zoom classes, but also getting their work completion done. And so we've done a lot as a staff to to have those regular support meetings for those students who are in jeopardy of not earning credits, setting up plans for them to allow them success. We are looking at our academic data. You will see if you take a look at the charts for Odyssey, the comparison with kindergarten and first grade looks a little bit different because this year is the first year that we have used the iReady assessment in kindergarten and first grade levels. So that is new for us. However, the initial data that we received at the kindergarten level, we do have 100% of our students at the kindergarten level on or above grade level in literacy, and 94% in first grade. So the results we've seen are really good. So we'll see comparatively from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. In addition, we have seen some overall really nice improvements as a whole school with both literacy and math. Literacy, we had 57% of our students on or at grade level last year, and it increased to 73% this year. Last year, as an entire school, we had 52% or higher proficient or above. This year, 68%. And just to explain, in Odyssey, we do use the iReady assessment up through 12th grade, just to give us a data point to be able to compare and show student learning and growth. We have a lot of new students who come to us, so that gives us a data point 3 times a year to be able to show that growth. So we really do this assessment K through 12th grade. In our high school and middle school classes, we've had an increased amount of students taking our project-based learning classes more and more each year. Seeing tremendous growth in those areas. The students are familiar with the format, how they go through the inquiry process, so we've seen a lot of benefit in that. Just to jump back, I do want to address at the early grade levels with the literacy and math. For intervention, our classroom teachers are the ones who are responsible for providing that literacy and math intervention. And the needs vary from class to class. Some classrooms have fewer students, some have up to 6 or 7. We do group when we can, but it's our classroom teachers who are providing that intensive literacy and math intervention when needed, anywhere from 1 to 4 times a week. We do have a few reading interventionists on our staff, so we are really fortunate to have their expertise and experience, as well as one of our teachers is just about completed finishing up her letters training, which is an early literacy program. Moving forward, we are currently working on revising our contract. This is our 5th year of our contract, so we're working on redoing that with our governance board as well as the district. We are working on a smoother transition for our 6th graders moving into 7th grade. I think it's difficult sometimes for parents because Odyssey is one school. We're a 4K through 12th grade school, but there's always going to be differences between elementary and middle school and high school, just those expectations, and it's still a big transition. So we've been taking surveys from parents, students, looking at exit surveys when students withdraw to really address those areas that we can be a little more proactive with by providing different sessions for 6th graders, their parents, which we've already started to do this spring, and talking about next year in middle school. We've also included them in project showcases and various days in the middle school, just so they can get an idea of what it might be like next year. We are meeting in vertical teams by subject with our upper grade levels in elementary and middle school, just to make sure that our expectations and our progression with curriculum is as smooth as it can be. And we continue to analyze our early literacy intervention, just making sure that we are using the best research practice interventions that we can use. I had mentioned one of our teachers is receiving her letters training, and she's really been integral with teaching the others on the staff, sharing those resources and all of that information that she's learning. We also continue to work with our high school students who are credit deficient and have them working on some Admentum classes to try to gain some of those credits that have been lost during their high school years. Any questions?
Okay. Travis, now that you.
All right, I just want to touch on the top sections just a little bit to start with. We've improved on our technology support ticket response time, and I think that speaks volumes of the IT team that I have underneath me that I work with. They've grown more comfortable and enrolled. A lot of them are newer in the district, and they've learned to kind of balance their projects versus answering help tickets, what they're working on and how to shift that around, and also just grown in their knowledge of what the district uses for hardware, software. So I just have to give them a huge kudos. They've really, really improved in what they're doing. Our uptime, or I should say downtime, for the district, we've been rock solid for the year. We did have an outage at Boring Park, was that last week? We had a hardware failure, a piece of our equipment did fail. We had probably been down 30 minutes, but my vehicle was in the shop, so it was about an hour of me getting rides back and forth for the parts I needed that were back over here. But otherwise, we've been up and running very well. We did have a couple of servers that we replaced over the summer that we were able to replace without any downtime. We were shifting things around, so that was great. Down below, some of the highlights, we replaced 150 of the Chromebooks, touchscreen Chromebooks at Barlow Park. Those are used in both the K and first grade classrooms. The ones they had were end of life, so we did have to replace those. They prefer the touchscreens. The little ones work better with that. We completed the installation and configuration of new wireless at the high school and middle school building. The ones we had in were about 6 years old and were not as robust as these. They can handle more devices, better speeds, which will help with testing is one of the big things where we ran into some issues in the previous years. Just we didn't have the bandwidth we needed with those. We replaced our IT and maintenance help desk with some new software called Mojo Help Desk. Our previous software went end of life and was not supported anymore. So we moved to a better solution that is just much more robust. We implemented two-factor authentication. We finished up on that for staff with Google and also Infinite Campus. That improves security, so they have like 2 different levels of security to get into Google and into Infinite Campus. And then I've worked with the DOJ and the CISA to do periodic cybersecurity scans on the network and just kind of see what's out there. We also sat through with the DOJ putting together kind of an idea of what we have for a cybersecurity plan, where we're good, where we're not good, and getting kind of a framework to put one together that I can present later on at some point to the board. Some of the opportunities for growth, we're going to look into the access points for both Murray and Barlow Park, and that's with the E-rate program, so we'll get a discount on that. We're going to continue with multi-factor authentication for applications. We're looking at things like Alio, where is our financial software, and doing 2-step authentication with that for staff. They do a great job with that already in limiting it down to the school district. And then if you're at home with Alio, they need to know your home IP address. If it changes, it has to be updated. So they really do kind of limit who can access that and from what locations. But we do want to add a little bit more onto it since it's such a valuable program for us. One other thing that Tanya had thrown out is badge cards. We're going to look into badge cards with barcodes on them for the students to go around and get their lunch accounts, their media center checkout, something with running laps, keeping track of that. So we're going to look at some type of badges that they can have to make things a little easier for them. And then we're going to continue on the cybersecurity monitoring tools. E-rate is considering adding cybersecurity tools to the options you could have out there for kind of your second level, where they have like, you can purchase switches and access points and get a discount. They're looking at adding in cybersecurity monitoring tools. And I've reached out to DPI, what's the deal with this, what's going on, and I want to continue to kind of research that because that is kind of the number one thing that districts are asking for. Any conference you go to for IT for a K-12 is probably, I'm just going to guess, 60% cybersecurity. All the different sessions they have. It is really the number one thing, so I'm trying to continue on that. Any questions?
I'm just curious if schools have become a target in Wisconsin for hacking.
We're seeing more and more of them become kind of a big thing. I think Plymouth recently had an incident a couple of weeks ago. So we're seeing that. We've learned from like Nina, we talked with them when they had theirs last year. We actually had a group of us went up to go and visit them and see what happened. How did it happen? What have you done since then? And their number one thing was two-factor authentication for Google and things like that. They had their Google set up to link to everything. And they didn't have two-factor. They were looking into it. What was nice about that was it was very easy for us then to say, okay, we're going to two-factor here. Without a whole lot of, grumbling or anything like that. It was like, no, we have to do this. This is the number one thing. And looking at that, and then looking at some of the other districts that have had issues, they had their website on site, which we do not have on site. They had their student information system on site, which again, we have ours hosted. And they didn't have two-factor authentication. So we're just trying to learn from other districts and what they've done to see what we can do better and what we can increase here. One of the other things we did over the summer was limit with our firewall what different countries, traffic can come in and out of. Because we've noticed that was one of the big things, and that was passed along to us by some of the other districts, is just, limited. If you don't need to go, to websites that are from these certain places, just limit it down. So really, I'm gonna just say we're learning from other districts as much as we are trying to do stuff ourselves. And I meet with about 4 different school districts, Berlin, Amarillo, and Elmira, once a week, and one of our biggest things is talking about cybersecurity. What are you doing for this? What are you doing for that? I heard about this, or passing along just anything we can with each other.
Great.
And just to piggyback off what Travis said, I mean, HVAC, was a huge thing at Nina. One of the ways they got in because they had old digital systems with old operating systems. Where we've upgraded Murray, completed Murray over COVID. We're just wrapping up Barlow, which would have been a system that could have been compromised. We're updating that kind of stuff, and really working on that the environment in the classroom. We spent the last 3 years relamping all the elementary schools to give that dimming and that ability to adjust your classroom setting to make it more inviting and a better learning place. And now we're in this building, working on this building, getting that stuff completed here, and ultimately we're giving a great environment in those classrooms, and we're also saving on utility bills. I mean, that's any money that we can keep in our pockets, it ends up back in the classroom just for that learning environment. Really just listening to the principals, what could help them out in their classrooms? What can we do to give that better learning environment so the kids have that ability to learn? Because it isn't the traditional, classroom anymore. It's adjusting to today's changes. So, the facilities department does huge things in the classrooms where, we're constantly, updating or trying to address grounds issues. I mean, we had a lot of dead ash trees that we lost in the last 3 years, and now what do we put back in its place, because those trees have been there 20 plus years and they're all gone, so trying to get some of that stuff addressed, so it doesn't look like, hey, we're a brand new building that was built 30 years ago and we have no trees. So really addressing those things and keeping the safety, in our forefront. I talked about Murray Park in here. The Murray Park's, 31 years old this year. I mean, it's addressing some of those things that are end of life and really addressing the things before they become a critical breakdown of, having that plan of, hey, we're going to start working on this. And that's what we did with like Barlow with the HVAC. We knew that it was at the end of life. It was 20 plus years old. Sensors were starting to fail, and we wanted to make sure we addressed it before we had issues. So with the support of the board and everything, we were able to address a lot of the major critical stuff in our buildings the last couple of years, and really working on, continuing to make that environment even better. So always, facilities can be an endless project of things we can do, and every year we continue to try to get things off our list and continue to offer the best environment for our kiddos, to learn in and to thrive in. So, yeah.
So a lot of information to take in. As always, we encourage you, certainly if you have questions, to contact us and let us know. But again, just super proud of our leadership team as well as our teaching staff, our support staff for their collaborative efforts and seeing some great things happening across the district.
Great.
Thank you.
Anybody have any final questions for me?
Just want to say thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of information. And then to have it side by side too, so we can kind of see where we were, where we're going, where we anticipate to go. And I really like how both of you guys have celebrations and growth, like equal. Like we're doing great. We got so much more to do. So yes, fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks for putting this together and presenting it the way you did. It's very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's nice to have seen it now multiple years.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Well done.
All right, we have a new student representative, Charlie, right? Charlie Castleton? So you're up.
As you said, my name is Carly Kastenschmidt. I'm former Vice President of Student Council, and I've assumed the position of President, so I'm super excited to be here. With that being said, I have a couple of updates of what's been going on at the high school. This past week, we had a performance of Anastasia put on by the RHS Drama Club. It was a great production, and I noticed that they had an amazing turnout. I myself got to watch it, and I think it's really great that they still put on the production for all the students from Barlow Park, Murray, and still the high school. I think that's a great opportunity for them as students to show the student body what they've been working on. Next week we have coming up is Winterfest. Student Council has brought back the annual Winterfest dance. We have activities planned for Friday during advisory. We've incorporated the staff in on this, which I'm super excited about. I think it's great to see the students, seeing the staff participate in the same activities they would. And after that, we have the dance that night. There is a little bit of conflict with if the girls' basketball game being on Friday night, if they went on Tuesday. So we'll just sort that out as that comes. Shouldn't be too big of a deal. After that, we have blood drives. Student Council has planned 2 more upcoming blood drives, one on March 1st and one on May 1st. For the March 1st, Student Council members have been working to get community members and a lot of the student body signed up to donate, which I think is great. And then we'll move forward with the May 1st one. I think it's great that Student Council has the opportunity to put on 2 more before the end of the school year. We usually just do 2 throughout the whole school year, but this year we've had the opportunity to do 3, which is great. And then Student Council will be working on updating the bylaws. They haven't been updated in a while, and students have had more opportunities coming to them with internships, youth apprenticeships, and college classes. And with the new opportunities, we just need to update the bylaws so they're more fitting for the student body. And that is about it. Very short.
Anybody have any questions for Carly? Okay, thank you.
Well done.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you are, of course, free to leave, you know.
Yes.
Go to the boys' bedroom.
Thank you.
All right, we move to new business. And the first item of new business is the acceptance of Melissa's resignation from the board. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Oh. And any discussion? Obviously, we're going to need to have some discussion about what we're going to do, but that's separate from accepting the resignation. So I will call for a vote. So it's ITP.
Yeah, I never got the button, so I'll try it again.
All right. And the resignation is accepted. When do we discuss?
You can now,
We can do it now?
we did put on the process for filling the board vacancy, if that's something that
So what's your pleasure? So what we've done in the past, we have 1 year left, just over 1 year left, right? Okay. And what we've done is we've sought qualified applicants, and then we've interviewed them here, and we've chosen somebody. I think it's been quite successful. Certainly got us some good board members in the past. Is that?
That's what I would like to do. You can't really, you shouldn't go a year.
Right. That's too long.
Yeah.
And it's too late for anybody to be on the ballot.
So is the best way to publicize it by an article or an ad?
it's a process that we've used in the past. We've used the same process to get information out. And if you're happy with the process that we've used in the past.
Anybody?
So move this
Consensus?
forward, do we need a formal motion?
Well, we can do that, and then there will not be any arguments about it.
So can we, like, have a motion to instruct the administration to advertise the open position and develop dates for interview by the board?
So that's all in our policy, bylaw, everything, even the promoting and all that, it's all here for us.
So if it's okay, I'll just move that, right? Could that be a motion that Jody can type up?
Is it a shame or is it
Shall. I'm not sure, I don't think we need the
I don't
motion
think you
looking
need
at
to
the
make the motion
policy.
because it's in the policy.
Right.
And
Yeah.
if you move forward, your motion would actually come and actually putting someone on the board,
Because we're
using
just
the process.
using our-
Great.
We're just following the
Just
policy.
follow the policy. Great.
So what it says is that we seek qualified and interested candidates from the community through the news media, word of mouth, and contacts with appropriate organizations. And of course, we put it on the website. All candidates, isn't showing up, are to submit a notice of their interest in writing to the board president. The board shall interview all interested candidates to ascertain their qualifications. If the vacancy is not filled within 60 days of the date on which the vacancy first exists, the vacancy shall be filled by appointment of the board president from among the applicants who completed the process noted above. So we just need to get this done. But we want to get it done quickly anyway, so that's not an issue.
Do we have to wait for 60 days?
No.
So we could schedule
We can start now,
meeting, interviews in March or now?
anytime we want to. Yeah, as soon as we have a reasonable number of.
Right, we just want to, you said like 2 weeks, people will submit their interest and then we move forward or follow along.
And if we know ahead of time the day that the board is looking to do the interviews, we can even share that out then.
Now, we do have some questions in terms of date. Let's let's see, we already have a special meeting on the 28th, which is essentially 1 week. Then the 6th, we hope to have a meeting, right? But I was wondering about the same, how likely it is that we could just do it on that
You
night.
might be able to do that, because you could approve and then you could go into interviews.
That's right, that's not a good time to do it, it's too short anyway, I think. So maybe we'll say we're going to meet on March 6th? And if we have the other business to take care of, we'll take care of that too.
Yep.
Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Good. Great.
We'll get that posted right away.
All right, moving on to new business. Consider approval to increase summer school rate for certified staff. Is there a motion to put it on the floor?
So moved.
Second.
Nate? Any discussion? We talked about it a little bit before, so, all right, I'll call for the vote. Should have the and it passes unanimously. Consider approval to purchase replacement graduation stage. Is there a motion to put this on the floor?
I move to approve the purchase of a replacement graduation stage as presented.
Thank you, Gary. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion. This is one we haven't talked about.
So the motion is to approve a maximum,
$46,000 budget. And if I remember correctly, one of the bids came in at over and one came in at 100.
Are there warranties and, all kinds of things that come with both of the different propositions, the proposals?
Yeah, that was my only question. You said they were good warranties, but.
So, Stage Right, I believe has a 5-year warranty. I think Wagner has a 5 or 8-year warranty. I can get that for you when I can. But both of them have at least a 5-year warranty on product.
Did you see any of the, actually see the products?
So we actually have a site visit on Thursday if it doesn't snow to go down to Sun Prairie. Sun Prairie has it in their band room. They have the Stage Right material in their band room and then in their new performing arts center. So Randy and I, depending on weather, we're to go see it. I've talked to Green Bay, I've talked to DeForest, I'm trying to think, Nina. All these districts have purchased. Wagner is a great stage as well. It's just a little pricier. But Green Bay bought a Stage Right stage. DeForest has it with the 80 ramp and very happy with all of it. I'm more of a hands-on guy, so I really want to see it in person because I just want to make sure that it's appropriate for what we're looking for.
Yeah, I'd be interested in your feedback once you've seen the actual.
So that's we're hoping to go tomorrow before the storm. But Sun Prairie had a jazz festival over the weekend, and they just said, hey, can we pull off and come later in the week? So Green Bay and DeForest said that when they'll look at it, they don't use it in a normal setup, so they would have it away. But Sun Prairie uses it in their high school, and then Green Bay also uses it in their high school. So we do have some options to go look. And then I think I've done probably 20, 30 correspondence with both Wagner and Stage Right of different questions and things that that I've had, and or somebody had said, hey, this is what we like about this, so I just kind of throw it out there here and there and trying to get the best thing, because, as we're looking at making this purchase, I want to make sure that we're marking off every checkbox that we normally do.
And how long what's the lifespan of something like this intended to be?
In our application, I think we'll get many years out of it. The old stage is probably 20, 25 years old. I would say at least. I talked to, trying to think, DeForest, and they've had it for 10 years, and they use it in their band room, and then take it out of the band room and use it for their graduation. And he's had it for 7 or 8, and he's like, we've had no problems with it whatsoever. He's actually like, we'll show you some of our tricks of our trade that we learned, when we first learned as well. So every district's been great, and that was one thing I asked the vendors, can you send me references, because would love to do site visits, similar to when we did turf and all that stuff, is really do those site visits and kick the tires and see what we're getting, because everything can look great on paper, but I want to make sure that it's hitting what we would like to get at. Sure.
So I think we're safe. Normally one would like to know beforehand what they think of it, but just to put in a cap of 46,000 on it. If he comes back and tells us he doesn't really like it, then we just have to modify it.
And the reason we did that cap is because both the two bids are very good equipment with great references. Obviously, we're looking at possibly a lower bid if the material is exactly what we're hearing it's going to be. So I just wanted to bring it to the board tonight so we can have an approval, because one company's given me up to 45 to 60 days because of the ADA ramp, and then another company's saying 68 weeks. So I just want to make sure that it's here and here by the time we do graduation, because we want to not only use it for graduation, but we would love to use it for prom. So that way, if we need it, let's show off the new stuff that we have, and have every check mark made that we need for that stage.
Any other questions?
Is this bigger than what we've got now?
So we are going to bigger, because with the configuration of the ramp on the backside, we do need to expand the width and the depth of it, so that way, if anybody needs to maneuver it, we can maneuver it safely. So it is going to be bigger.
Where do we store that?
So right now we store it in the back of the auditorium. We may have to look at having that remote storage over in my shop, just for once a year where we just put a tarp or something over it, because we will have with the ramp and everything, you're going to have more material. But once again, the building grounds guys were really, it doesn't take up much room, but I know we're already tight on space, and even the old stage, my thought is, once we get the new one, do we look at reselling the old one, because there's still life in it. It's just we really want to make sure it's that ADA compliance.
And I guess if that one district is headed for 7 to 10 years, they've been able to service it themselves, I suppose.
They haven't had much issues whatsoever. That's where it's like, when stages, if you have hinge legs or whatever, you're always going to have, failure issues, failure parts, just because of the use. But nobody has really voiced any concerns with any issues. The stage that we're going to look at on Thursday doesn't have hinged legs. It's more of a Z platform that it sits on 4 posts. So it's got a different setup that seems quite I think is better than having the hinge legs. So, but we'll find out more. just researching some of the stages, I mean, some of the bigger cities and stuff have bought stage right for some of the bigger, you know, complexes outside. So, you know, they had a million questions. Do you need this? Do you need this? You know, so when we wrote the RFP, we tried to be, you know, as appropriate as what we're using it for our setting.
Okay. Anything else? All right, I'll call for a vote. And once again, it passes.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks much. Anybody would like to go?
You said snow.
It's gonna mess us all. I think Friday is more likely than Thursday, just saying. All right, we move to the consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda that anybody needs to remove or would like to remove? If not, I will take a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thanks, Tom. Second?
Second.
You may vote. And the consent agenda is approved. So we move to possible upcoming action items. And the first one is a new CAP chemistry course proposal for Ripon High School. Any comments or questions about that? Just getting ready for next meeting. All right. We'll move on. We will have, of course, always another chance to talk about it if questions come up. Consider approval to add a second school resource officer.
This has been a collaborative conversation for a while that we've been talking about.
Did you have that conversation, or?
Yeah, I don't know if you, I mean, you see what's in the memo in terms of some of the things that we've been looking at and considering, and just the weight of referrals and needs. I feel we are so fortunate here in Ripon to have such an amazing relationship with our police department, and to have such a talented SRO in our schools who is able to advocate and work with our students. In times it's reactive, but really so much of it is proactive in the education and the training and the relationship building. But we do see just the demands. We didn't make any kind of adjustment to staffing when we had our other officer retire, and all of those instructional courses were added to the plate of the SRO. So as we began to address the request and really dig in and look at it, it became kind of obvious to us where the additional demand and need was.
Certainly, I think the documents that you have been given, the memo that you've been given, really lay out some of the concerns and things that we've been seeing. Like Dr. Whitworth explained, we've been having this conversation about this probably for years, about appropriateness, when is it appropriate, based on needs and those things that are coming up. I think you heard, as I sat here today and listened to your administrators talk to you, explain some of the things that they're dealing with in their schools. We're seeing the same thing. Certainly, one of the things that the SRO currently does, because we have one SRO, that SRO, you have to understand, is assigned to all the schools. So there are times when that one SRO may be dealing with an issue here at the high school, and is getting phone calls from another school asking for services there, and she just can't go there. So there are times where I have to have patrol officers supplement that SRO at times. That opens the door for some concerns, because now you're introducing an officer who's not as familiar with the school district policies, how things are operated, how things are done, contact with parents, those type of things. So that always makes us a little nervous. Obviously, an SRO has that dual role with law enforcement as well as with the school district and understanding both policies and procedures for both of those things. I think certainly the role of law enforcement we've seen change within, the last several years. It is changing rapidly. I don't think that we've seen the change in the role of law enforcement across this nation as we are seeing currently in what they do and how they respond to things. Even in my career, I've been with the city of Ripon for 33 years. Even during that time, from when I started to the things that we deal with now, has so dramatically shifted in how we respond to things and how we deal with things, as well as the type of calls that we're dealing with. Certainly, I would tell you that the mental health issues that we deal with probably have risen, I would say conservatively, at least 300–400% since I started. We are dealing with mental health issues every single day across this community. In my opinion, the SRO position is one of those positions that is probably the most influential in all of the supplemental things that we do, the operations that we do, because they have the ability to access our most vulnerable kids, okay, at a time when they need that. Those are kids that are going to go through your school district, end up being citizens of our community, and that bond and that relationship that we can establish between law enforcement and those kids during that process not only will benefit those kids, but will also benefit as we look to the long-term relationships between law enforcement and police, not only in this community, but across this nation. So, as Dr. Whitrock said, and I certainly will compliment your administrators and your staff, we have an excellent relationship with your district, and we look forward to that continuing. Certainly there are, as you look through the documents that you've been presented, the memo that you presented, this is a dual cost to both the district and to the city. We operate on a cost-sharing program right now for the one SRO. That is the format that we're going to be looking at for this. So certainly tonight is a discussion with you about this. Next week I will be having the same type of discussion with the city council as we move forward and continue to talk about this. So, but we felt that it was appropriate to come to you first and speak with you about that. But you need to understand, as a leader of my organization, how much importance I put on the relationship with the school district. And to me, this is part of that ongoing change in how we do business together with the community, and I think that this is an appropriate use for that. I did like the comment that Principal Hatley made tonight about, the younger students being helped along by those staffs. What we're seeing is, and when I talk to SRO Michaels, is she has a little regret because she's not able to spend as much time with those littles as she would like. There are lots of things that she could be doing as far as relationships, outreach, those type of things. But a lot of times she's unable to do that because of her restraints at the other schools. So there's some opportunity there to make some difference. The other thing to just think a little bit about too is, as you hear about discussions tonight that I heard about behavioral referrals and those type of issues, for a lot of our kids and a lot of our parents, their only access to programs is through, a lot of times through us. Okay? So we may have teachers or staff that contact the SRO and say, hey, I've got this child dealing with this issue. Who do I call? How do I get them in? What programs? What do I do? And the SRO really is the gatekeeper for that a lot of times. she has the contacts, she has the ability to make those connections for those students, for those staffs, for those important resources that they need, whether it's financial resources for the families and the children, healthcare issues, mental health, drug, alcohol issues, just welfare type issues that we see. And so much of what we do now in law enforcement has gone away from just enforcing law and arresting people to more of that social work aspect. And that's really where we've seen a significant change as well. So I think this position would just enhance that ability to make that connection, enhance both our service and your service to the students in your district. Obviously, there's a lot of safety issues that the SRO deals with across the board for the entire district. And I think that this certainly will help that, and as we move forward, that's what we will be looking at. One thing I will comment on in the document, the memo that you received, you'll see numbers in there as far as call volumes that we took a look at. You know, just kind of consider that with a grain of salt as well, because there's a lot of things that the SRO does that aren't generated in those call numbers. You know, for instance, if Officer Michaels just told me that in the past week she had a student come in and meet with her for over an hour about some issues that student was going through, and she was able to help that student through that. That's not reflected in your numbers that you see here. Those are the type of things and the connections that our SROs can do that maybe you're not seeing in those numbers. So just kind of, even though the numbers we believe are up from what we've been seeing and we're concerned about that, that's something else to consider as well. So certainly if you have any questions, I'd be happy to talk to you about that within the next month before you consider this. If you have a chance, you want to stop down and talk to me or meet with SRO Michaels to ask her about the need and what her feelings are about that, she certainly would be able to talk to you. She wasn't able to be here tonight because we have a mental health program going on for our officers tonight that she was responsible for, so all the officers are there. So, but she will have been here as well. But I can entertain any questions that you might have right now, let them know or any information.
This year's cost for an SRO was $60,000. I thought the city and the school district shared it 50-50.
Yeah, we do.
We do?
Yeah, that's half. Yeah, so and the numbers that you've got as far as your dollar amounts, I have to, as I do that, remember this officer is part of the union, so I have to, we've done some things as far as our hiring that have allowed us to keep full staff here, and a lot of departments have struggled. A couple of those things are like lateral transfer from other agencies, bringing in 8 officers at a higher level versus starting pay. So the numbers that you have here are based on a increased rate or the highest level of the option. So I would have to look at that high level rather than, I could bring in an officer maybe that would be at a lower level than what that dollar amount is, you understand? But that 60,000 that you're seeing there is the cost share. It's a 50-50 cost share that covers wages and benefits for that officer. The city covers, besides that, other half of that dollar amount. We cover all the overtime, we cover all the training expense, we cover the vehicle, we cover the training, all of those things we cover. That isn't included in that dollar amount. Okay? So in essence, if you were to approve this, what you would be approving is half of one officer and half of another officer, or basically one position. You would be paid for half of both officers. The city covers the other half plus all those other things that go along with that half.
Thank you for that explanation.
Sure.
And then will you also need to go to the city then for an increase in your staffing on the police
Yes.
force?
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, and that's what the conversation will be about with them next week, is that, hey, this is on the table, we're talking about that. Obviously, their decision would be reflective of what your decision is or need for your decision. So, but certainly I would have to make adjustments in my budget, the city's budget, to cover that added cost Because what I would have to do is backfill them for my staffing to have that officer there.
So I have just a couple of questions. So I guess structurally, are we talking about having 2 officers for the entire district, or one based over, pre-K to 5 and, 5 to 12? How are we talking about?
Yeah, we've had some initial conversations about that, and we floated a couple ideas, whether it's one officer assigned to like the littles, for better terms, Barlow and Murray, and another officer assigned to the high school, middle school, and charter school, or Crossroads. We've had discussions around that, or we've had discussions about sharing that, having them go back and forth. And there's some things to consider there because, so for example, Officer Michaels right now, in addition to doing all of these schools and her regular SRO duties, also goes to the schools and teaches protective behaviors at one of the schools. She also goes there and teaches what used to be DARE, which is now our ACE program at another school. So while she's there doing that, then I have officers covering here if there's a call or an issue.
Sure, I would assume there's collaboration.
Yeah,
Right.
so to be honest with you, we haven't made a determination about how that structure would look or how that would work, because I think it's important for us to have lengthy conversations with your support services about that, and we started on that, and then was on her leave.
Right.
So,
But I think, we see benefits both ways.
Sure.
And right now, all the students do know Officer Michaels.
Right.
And so there's benefit in continuing that and introducing the second officer, because we never know
Right.
which
Yeah.
officer would be responding, and that rapport with the student
Sure.
prior to the crisis is what's
Sure.
really beneficial, so.
in those days when I don't have an SRO, Lindsay's been with us for a long time. And so, and she sometimes sacrifices her own, vacation or things for work. And so when she's off, this SRO would cover them where she is not. Same thing when that officer would be off, she would cover. So
Sure.
it's important that they know everyone,
Right.
and they work through those buildings and staff, because they're going to be collaborating on a lot of things.
So who then specifically, because if they're coming from 2 completely different entities, obviously we have our policies and procedures here, you have your own policies and procedures, and then different buildings also have different needs and policies and procedures. How does that, in terms of hierarchy, how does that work? You know what I'm saying? Like who, I guess, are they reporting to, so to speak? I mean, I feel like that's kind of not exactly how that would go, but.
Yeah, truly the SRO really is working very closely with the principal and with the people service team,
Okay.
because we just need to know our lanes, we need to move
Yeah.
and have things handled well.
Right.
But then there's that follow-up, we have our weekly administrative team meetings, so there's a lot of feedback and interaction and opportunity there to collaborate across buildings and
Sure.
discuss any concerns or issues that come up, or even new ideas and opportunities. And then we hold monthly safety meetings where we're actually interacting with our SROs. Chief Ballmer's there, so we're able to talk about those things and collaborate across agencies as well. And those are so important. And I think when we say we have a great relationship, the police department is there every single meeting. And if we need to shift a meeting, they make time for that. And so it's that constant interaction that allows us to maintain that good relationship and talk through some of those kind of logistic things. And,
Sure. Because a lot of the resources you were mentioning, for her being a primary contact for social services and things like that, I know our district is able to provide those to students too, through our behavioral health specialists, through our psych, our counselors, So I'm assuming that it's just a new field, a new set of eyes that also has access to these things, that isn't necessarily educational background, it's a different, professional role.
And she works very closely with all of those support services.
Sure.
that you've got in all the buildings.
Yeah.
And it's not uncommon for them to call her.
Right.
And run things by her.
Right.
Or say, who do I call about this? Or where does this go? Or how do I do this?
Right.
And it's not uncommon for them to have conversations about students
Right.
and what's going on. And that's important because it's important for them to understand what services are there and how they can access that. But it's important for her too to understand what's going on with these kids as they're moving through, what family impact and those type of things that she can help with. So it's really a collaborative effort.
Sorry, I just have another question.
Sure.
So when I worked in the ER in Ripon for a while, and we obviously had mental health issues, and we had law enforcement involved in mental health issues. And when you are wearing a different hat in a different environment, but still performing your professional role, right? So I can be a nurse at my kid's basketball game, but I'm not the bedside nurse where I'm at a hospital, right? So my response is, even though they're ingrained, because I am a trained nurse, right, they have to be different based on the environment and the circumstances. So when I'm working with law enforcement in a hospital setting, my assumption is that there is specific training so that when they're in a pre-K setting, right, or a middle school setting, or a high school setting, those things have variables that come into play in terms of trained responses. So for SROs, do they have to go through like different forms of, for this demographic, here are interventions, and for this demographic, here are set interventions?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and we've done a lot of work not only with our SRO, but with our officers as well.
Okay.
As far as critical incident response and how they respond to mental health issues and crises, whether it's with juveniles, children, or adults. Because of the increased volume of our mental health calls.
Sure.
And the things that we deal with on a daily basis.
Sure.
We've had to do that. We've had to move forward with that. We've done some good things in this county with response to mental health. We've got a mental health liaison right now that with law enforcement in the county that will actually respond with law enforcement as a social worker or mental health worker to locations and help them work through that. So yeah, there's specific training that our SROs go through for that. They work closely and they attend training with school staff about those issues. So yeah, they work hand in hand together with those things.
Okay. I mean, I just feel like for your field, for our field, for education field, it's kind of, I don't want to say it's a new horizon, but it's definitely swiftly changing. And the ability to adapt and adjust to it, especially when you find yourself in a variety of environments with different presentations of mental health. There are a lot of challenges involved with what you actually know and your processes and how to apply those in situations to best serve the patient, or in our case, our students. So.
Yep, and the officers have to be aware of not only the mental health nuances there and how to address that, but they also have to have the tactical considerations and concern for safety that a lot of other entities don't consider.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult line to follow.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we've done a lot of work with that, and we continue to do work with that. But yeah, the mental health issue in this nation across the board is
complex.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much.
It's rapidly changing.
Yep.
So.
And we did weigh out, do we do social work or do we do SRO? And we just feel based on our need and what we're seeing that the partnership with the SRO, having someone else in addition to Officer Michael trained in all the things that you just were talking about in a proactive way is so beneficial.
Yeah, and I think that's just what the public wants to know is, right, is that that's what we're doing, that's what we're looking to do, and that's how we're best going to serve our families. So, yeah, I think it sounds great.
One of the things that Jolene had shared with us too is we just did a social media post acknowledging our SRO. And I don't know, I'll just let you speak a little bit to the numbers because the positive response was just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it for a few days, but as of last week, the reach on that post in our community was just over 11,000 people with an engagement of over 3,000. Normally, our engagement covers around like 200 to 300. Those are considered big numbers. So just a lot of people showing a lot of appreciation and a very clear understanding through their comments of just how valuable the work is of our SROs.
Oh, yes.
So all across the board.
That goes a long way in what she's about. She's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to have her, I'm lucky to have her, you're lucky to have her.
Yes,
The
yeah.
community's lucky to have her. She's phenomenal human being above all else, so she does great work in her job. Yeah.
So you realize if we pass this, we're looking for you to clone him.
I was saying the same thing, yes.
The opportunity to do that training and to mentor and work with someone new coming in is phenomenal.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask, just to follow on that, do you have someone in mind, or do you think this would be a new hire? And I guess it doesn't matter.
Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
I guess it doesn't matter much, and maybe it's not appropriate for you to
Yeah,
answer.
I've got some officers that are interested,
Okay,
and I've got some officers that don't want anything to do with it.
okay.
Yeah,
That's,
they see the call volume and the stuff that Lindsay has to deal with,
yeah,
and they don't want anything to do with it. But I do have some officers that have expressed an interest already.
that was a better question.
Some of them have actually gone to training already, kind of on juvenile issues, kind of pointing, that they have an interest in that. I would like, my preference would be to have an internal candidate. I think that would make that transition a lot easier because they already understand, our department. Now it's just understanding how you do things here. Dr. Whitrock did allude to a little bit about the training issue. What we would propose is that new officer would come with Lindsay for the end of this year, 2023, spring semester, and basically do a shadow with her. She's the one that's going to guide them with her expertise and her knowledge and establish those values and those things that are so important for her and in the district that they have a clear understanding of that before we move into the fall semester. So it's a lot of things to consider. Obviously, I understand it's an expense, and what the shared part of this, obviously, as we look at budgets and things, I'm trying to do a shared project, it certainly helps. But certainly, whatever happens, we value your support, we value your teamwork. I can't say enough about your administrators. I get to work with them quite often, and they're an excellent group. They're very supportive of what we do. So just look forward to continuing to have this conversation with you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thanks for all the information. Appreciate it.
All right, consider approval of full day 4-year-old kindergarten. Comments, questions?
Yeah, go ahead, just kind of where it started from and the process that we worked through.
So the conversation regarding a full day 4-year-old kindergarten program evolved into two separate concerns that we had. The first one being that as we're training our staff more and more, and the demands and expectations for our 4-year-olds is increasing, there's just not enough time in a half-day program to be able to get to all of the academic pieces while also prioritizing play because they're 4. And so we don't want to lose that part of our program, but we also want to be able to do those academic pieces to fidelity and to the capacity that we know our kids need and give them that really great boost in the kindergarten. The second part of it is actually some conversations that I've had with families when we are asking why they might open enroll out of the district and then not come back. And a really big challenge right now is the shortage of child care workers and child care spots specifically in our community, but also across the nation. And we often will lose families because they are seeking child care outside of Ripon, perhaps near their place of employment. And then once their child is placed in that district, it's really hard to pull them out of the district and bring them back to Ripon because you don't want to pull them from the friends and relationships and the teachers that they've already made in that new district. And so as we are looking at the need within the curriculum, but then also the need within, that our families are having, it kind of makes sense to be able to give our families more care within the district. That's the quality is something we have control over. Currently, our Advocate Head Start program is housed at Barlow Park, but we do not have control over that, nor do we get funding for that. But they do go a 4-day-a-week or full days a week, with that 5th day then being collaboration time, and also an opportunity to do some in-home visits for those families. But that program is specifically for families who fall in the at-risk category, and so they are, you have to have an economic qualifier in order to do that programming. And so what we feel is that in going to the full day 4K, it would also then open up an opportunity for us to be able to reach our kids at 3 and earlier to actually give them that head start into school as that program is intended to do.
And that is a program some communities have, we just don't have it through the program.
So with what we would like to propose is going to, from half days, 5 days a week, to full days for 4 days a week, and then also bringing all of our 4PS programs back into the building. And so we would have to do some moving around of classrooms and reconfiguring, but by having them within the building, then we're able to make use of all of the therapies and specialists all within the building and be able to really give that comprehensive and supportive education that we really want to be able to give our kids at 4.
So what do the other providers feel about that? Because we never had them all here before. I mean, when we started it, we went out to them and they were hosting.
Yep.
So are they happy with the idea that we're going to gather everybody into the school?
Well, technically, right now, our only community provider is RCLC. Because we had to reduce sections, so we pulled back from Grace. And then back when I had started, we had also pulled back from Pickett. And those were financial decisions as well. What we had found with RCLC, one of the benefits to having that community partnership was being able to use them for wraparound care. And so our families that were able to send their child to, say, an AM session, then would utilize the PM wraparound care at RCLC. Again, the child care shortage that's happening is we don't have those spots. So we have families that have signed up for wraparound care that are on the waiting list. And so they aren't necessarily able to meet that need either. And so by looking at another opportunity to possibly bring Head Start into RCLC, or that 3-year-old program also brings in services that they don't normally have access to, into there to be able to support kiddos earlier on.
And the 3-year-old program then, because it's half days, could have wraparound care and then not utilize some of those wraparound spots for the 4-year-olds.
And then if I read it correctly, if parents don't want full day, they do have the option of
half day.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Though I will say that we had that originally when we went for kindergarten, and then it disappeared at some point when there were still some people who wanted.
Again, as those
I'm worried about
academic
that.
demands increased.
I think one of the things that we talked about was that if a parent starts with a half day at any point during the year when they feel their child is ready to move to a full day, they certainly could. So we feel like that gives some control to a parent who might say, I want to start with a half day, but maybe partway through the year I realize that I think my child is ready, or towards the end of the year would maybe want to make a switch for a little bit to have them try a full day, see how that goes. And we want to make sure that parents have the opportunity that they can't keep switching back and forth, and they can't select days or those kind of things. But if at some point they do want to move to full days, they certainly could do that. I mean, obviously, if it wasn't working with the child, they wanted to move back, that would be okay.
When would this start?
We would like it to start next year. We've also started to engage in some conversations with Grace regarding how they could potentially maybe pick up some of the support on that Friday, because it's still really difficult. Maybe a while since many of you had to use daycare, but daycare provider isn't going to want to do just one day of care a week, and so we don't want them to have to pay for 3 days to only attend the one day. And so looking at opportunities with Grace to be able to utilize Fridays as an option to pick up some of those kiddos who wouldn't be in a program.
One of the benefits of the community-based 4-year-old program was that interaction with our preschools and daycare sites across the community. And so one of the things that we would propose is establishing that between 3-year-old programs and our 4-year-old programs, that teachers of both programs could get together, collaborate in the summer, do some of that work, talk about just what their program looks like, and then kids coming into our program. And then I do feel like there's opportunity potentially through our Fund 80 to really help resource out and even share supplies and some early literacy things into our 3-year-old programs. So again, we start to build some equity across those programs for our students, wherever they may be, so that they're moving forward. We know, and for during even the time of COVID, when we were able to share supplies and resources and make sure that they were outfitted well, that made a big difference, because I don't think anyone has too much funding for their programs. We're all trying to do everything we can for the kids that we have in our community, because they're all ours, and they're eventually going to be in the district, and we want to make sure that their start is as amazing as it can be.
Why would this be Fund 80?
Well, it'd be community-based, and it would be before any of our public school funding starts within our
For the
funding
3-year-olds?
system, for the 3-year-olds,
Okay.
if we do anything for the 3-year-olds. Yeah, but you're right, the 4-year-old
4-year-old
program
would
would be
standard
within ours.
funding.
And our 4-year-olds in the funding formula are still at 0.6, even if we went to a full day. But just because of some of the savings in other places with that midday busing and those kind of things, we're able to make the budget work. But
It would still be 0.6,
yes,
even though the
we can
hours-
continue to advocate for
Ah,
Dr. State, everything.
But we feel like it's the right thing to do for our students and for our families.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Joan Wade is here representing Grace too, and we appreciate your partnership and collaboration and that ongoing conversation to make sure we do what we can for families.
We have a Grace preschool board meeting tomorrow night, and I just wanted to talk about what you were talking about.
Thank you.
So we appreciate the communication. I will say it's been second to none with Dr. Whitrock and Tanya. They've been good about cluing us in about what's coming down, because it does matter. Our program is very small. We had 8 4-year-olds, or 7 4-year-olds this year, and about a dozen 3-year-olds. So it's small, but mighty. We're doing good, kids, and you are too. So we just want to keep talking.
Yeah, and if anything we do can help grow programs, that's
We appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you.
And critical, as all of you know, because you're speaking to the choir, investing in those little ones, that's what makes the success at the high school level, right? You got to start them young. So thank you all for what you do.
Thank you.
All right, let's stay in touch.
All right, so another one is to consider approval of summer school classified staff personal day representative. So it's just kind of an extension of what we started this week. Any comments or questions about that? And we'll save somebody the bother of coming. Consider approval of, excuse me, school storm manager stipend. Anybody?
The only question I had is the stipend what's the stipend comparable? I didn't have a chance to look at the whole stipend sheet. But this proposed stipend takes into account the number of hours comparative to other stipend.
And then you pull that up.
So So the recommendation was 1488. I don't remember where that fits in.
Yeah, I don't either. But I guess we don't have to discuss that now. That would be something that I wanted.
But it's good if we can answer those questions too.
Just find the appendix.
Still needs guidance.
See where it puts those in.
So, yeah, it's level, that F there says it's in category F.
Right.
So it's in line with the other rates.
So it's like
within there.
musical director, choral, orchestra, choreography, three-act play director, drama production, costumes, pep band director, yearbook, assistant girls tennis, assistant boys tennis, yearbook, volleyball, boys basketball, girls basketball, wrestling, track, cross country. So that's the category that it would be.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, there's quite a few bullet points in the positions, so. I mean, does that make sense to me?
All right. Think about it. Coming back. Consider approval of increased pool wages. So we're having trouble running our swimming program in summer, so we need to be more competitive. Any questions or comments there?
I feel like we see this one a lot.
Yeah.
That's it?
I feel like we see this one a lot.
We do,
The
and it's just,
lifeguard
we're trying to figure out where we need to be to make sure the pool's open.
Yeah.
You know, because if we don't have guards, it's not open.
Yeah.
And that's clearly become a much bigger issue over the years. I mean, it used to be pretty easy to find guards.
It's so important to make sure that not only do we have solid lessons and the students can be in there, and I mean, that's a safety, for me, that's community safety to make sure that our students know how to, our kids know how to swim and are confident in the water.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. So now we have a whole bunch of bylaw policy revisions. And I can tell you right now, I think everybody will agree with me, but speak up if you don't. This was probably the least controversial set of changes ever.
Yeah.
They really were all just technical changes this time.
Really enlightening too.
So we'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any. Being done and moving on, but it takes a long time to do them all. Same thing with the administrative guideline revisions, they take a long. All right, so we're up to superintendent reports.
Yeah, and the first one is just kind of an update on our principal hiring timeline. We will be doing the first round of interviews this week and second round next week. And we did invite 6 applicants to come in for interviews, and then we look to go down to 2 next week. So we shared out with you kind of what our process looks like and our timeline and weekly updates. So just wanted to remind you that that's moving forward, and we actually do have a pretty significant team that will be going through the interviews on Wednesday, page 16. So there's 4 members of the administrative team, myself, Mr. Bungie, and curriculum and special ed directors. We have 2 parents, 2 teachers, 2 administrative staff, our SRO, board member, and then 4 teachers. We're within the professional educator realm, so a guidance counselor, our alternative high school, DS students and teacher, and then a teacher in a core area and in the CTE area. So we were able to just reach out through our survey and ask one to be involved and put that team together. So I have orange candidates. It's a large but friendly group, and it really is important for them to meet all of those stakeholders and know who they'd be working with. So it's been a very smooth process, and many thanks to Jolene, who's helping keep it all organized. So appreciate that. And Wednesday will be a good day.
Any legislative updates?
Nothing really significant at this point. Again, we're just going to be launching into that budget conversations and starting to follow that.
Takes us to parent and staff satisfaction survey results.
And we do
Can I just
have-
ask a question? Do you have the schedule for the CC6 legislative breakfasts that are coming up?
Yep, if you want to attend those.
I would like
Yeah.
to attend
Sounds
the
good.
next one. Thank you, sorry.
I'm just going to give you the date here. The 3rd March.
Thursday.
If you think you're going to attend that for sure, if you can just let me know, then I will let CC6 know to reserve a spot for you.
Thank you.
I'll let Deb know.
Thanks.
All right. And we do have Joe with us to provide an overview of the survey.
Good evening, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you again. Joe Donovan, again, from the Donovan Group. In a moment, I'm going to share a few slides, and I want to be really respectful of board members because you have a very busy schedule, I see, tonight. But I did want to follow up, and I wanted to provide an overview for your community on the surveys that we conducted. We talked about this a few weeks ago. One thing that I'll mention, again, I'm going to cover this very quickly tonight, and it's important to note that I have a full slide deck. It's the slide deck that I presented to you a few weeks ago when we met, and also 2 reports. So what I'd like to do, board members, if I may, is I'm going to share a slide deck. I'm going to actually do 2 slide decks, but I'm going to start with a parent survey. And board members, if I could, as I begin, I just want to, again, I want to thank you again for the opportunity to work with you. I'm going to talk about the surveys that we conducted. I also want to say here something that I mentioned to you before, that what we're seeing in the data, and this is maybe a spoiler alert for all of the slides and all of the pages of reports that we have in the board packet. But one of the things that I think that is the big takeaway is that what we're seeing is very little change, really, from year to year. We've seen some gains since 2017, as I've mentioned. This is a survey that we've done for many years. We have seen an uptake pretty consistently across all of the questions. We've also seen the participation rate increase. Before board members, I go into a few slides to demonstrate that. One of the things that I'll mention is something that we've been talking a lot about with various clients as we do the survey work, is that, and I'm just going to read this from the report because I think that it captures it. It's not lost on this that the 2022 survey, as I'm going to mention, was conducted in December, was conducted at a time of what we might call great turbulence. We are seeing across the board, we do a lot of surveys similar to this. We're seeing that there is, not only are we seeing, generally are we seeing participation rates pretty significantly lower than in past years in those districts where we do this survey a lot. We're also tend to see that satisfaction, both staff and parents, has gone home. One, as I mentioned to you before, we're not seeing this in your community. We're largely seeing things consistent. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the slight increases or decreases that we're seeing, but the net, I would say that these are very good data. So with that in mind, if I could, I'll just mention a couple of things. I'd like to start with parents. Members, the 2022 version of the survey, parent satisfaction survey, this survey was first conducted in 2017. The purpose of the survey, we're looking to elicit responses from parents regarding perceptions of 4 factors identified as important performance indicators. Number one, the school and learning environment. The relationship between the teacher and child, the principal's leadership and relationship, and the district superintendent. The data that I'm going to present was conducted by the Donovan Group. We kept the methodology the same. I always mention we're an independent third party. We don't have a connection with the school district other than we're asked to come in and do this survey. With that in mind, I will tell you that we launched this survey on December 2022. We closed it on December 16, 2022 at the close of the data collection period. 326 respondents participated in the survey. This was a slight decrease in participation from 2021. It was an increase over 2020. And one thing that I'll mention is that each of the parent respondents indicated having a connection to at least one school. That means that they had a child in the schools. We saw participation rates that were pretty similar to what we've seen in the past. These have bounced around a little bit. Largely, these reflect the population of the school. And if I could, and I'm going to spare you board members going deep into this. We've done that before. And again, I have all of the slides and all of the reports in the packet. But if we could, for the 4 areas that we did the survey on, school and learning environment, you're going to see 6 of 7 results in 2022 are higher than 2017, 2019. Relationship between teacher and child, 6 of 7 results in 2022 are higher than 2017. 3 are higher than 2019. Principals, leadership, and relationships, 2 of the 4 results in 2022 are higher than 2017. District and superintendent, all 3 results in 2022 are higher than 2017 and 2019. Board members, one of the things that I will mention to you, again, this is something that we've discussed. We do see a little bit of variation up and down from year to year. That's not terribly uncommon. I will tell you that, and again, this is spelled out in some detail in the report, that first of all, your overall results are very high. We do see in some cases something that we call a ceiling effect, that when the results are high, like yours are, that there's a fair amount of fluctuations from year to year, only because you can't go any higher. And so there's going to be some variability at the top. It's also important to note that this is one snapshot in time. So this isn't a situation where we're conducting this and weighing this and doing this over a series of days. As mentioned, this was done in one snapshot in time. It also was done at a time of what we would call fairly significant turbulence, just nationally. And again, I would say that the variability that we've seen in your results are less significant than what we've seen in other districts. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing this until I'm going fast, board members, because I want to be respectful of your time here. And I'm going to talk about the staff survey. Give me a moment, please. All right, give me a moment here, board members. All right, let's talk a little bit about the staff survey, the 2022 Ripon Area School District staff survey. Again, this was first conducted in 2017. The purpose of the survey is to elicit responses from staff regarding the work environment, relationships with colleagues and supervisors, opportunities for growth, movement, and overall satisfaction. This survey comprises 21 questions, each scored on a 5-point Likert scale. And the survey allows respondents to participate anonymously. The survey asks respondents to answer questions in 4 sets of questions. Number 1, personal factors. Number 2, work environment. Number 3, leadership team. And number 4, compensation. In addition, all are provided an opportunity to comment at the end of the survey for the purpose of clarification to offer some more specific insight and directions. Again, it's important to note here, we always say this, our data, this isn't based on a scientific sample. This is true of the staff survey, it's true of the parent survey. So we're not doing anything, anything that would require a scientific sample. This would be what we would call a convenience sample. That is, people who want to take the survey can. They're not compelled to. And so again, we might expect some natural variability as a result of that as well. Again, I talked before about the ceiling effect. My sense is that that is applied here and would contribute to some of the variability that we've seen. Again, outstanding results. It's one snapshot in time. It's also important to note that we do see some variability in the makeup of the response pool from year to year. I'll talk about that in a moment. Staff satisfaction survey initiated on December 5th is available to staff through the 16th of December. To close the data collection period, 128 respondents participated in the survey. This is 6 fewer than last year, but 42 more than 2017. It's also 43 more than 2019. Let's see. The first 3 questions of the survey asked respondents to share their role in the district. I'm going to talk a little bit about that here. And they also indicated how long they've been with the district. It's important to note here that more than 71% have worked for the district for 10 or fewer years. Teaching staff made up 62.5% of those who completed the survey. And 4 schools had at least 20% participation. Just do a very quick overview here, and I'll see if you have any questions. Again, 4 areas that we covered, starting with personal factors. All 17 results in 2022 are higher than 2017. 14 are higher, one the same, than 2019. Again, now that this data has been collected for several years, I think that it's most helpful to look at this in a longitudinal sense, that is over the course of many years. Work environment, all 18 results in 2022 are higher than 2017 and 19. Leadership teams, all 8 results in 2022 are higher than in 2017 and 2019. Compensation, all 5 results in 2022 are higher than in 2017. 3 are higher than 2019. Again, board members, I go into a lot of detail in the reports that are 2 reports that are in the packet that my colleagues and I created. Again, just wanted to be real respectful of your time. I certainly can geek out on this data all night long, but I promised that I would put you to sleep during what already is a very busy meeting. So with that, board members, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Anybody have any questions for Joe?
I think we did a good job going through it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, thank you. We'll create the infographic that we've done the last few years, the front and back, we'll send that out, and the information will be on the website. But make sure, that the results are out there. And it's really important for those who take the survey to know that they're seeing the results of the survey, and then, it's nice when we can let them know that, hey, we're doing this because of what we saw in the survey. That was a big part of why we moved to a virtual school, because we were seeing that in our enrollment survey that was a need that was there. So we want to always do that to keep that participation.
I did just want to make one observation. It's not a question, it's just an observation. So we keep comparing to 2017 and 2019, but when I look at the numbers, they took a huge jump from 2019 to 2020, or in one case to 2021, because of when it was offered. And then on both the parent and staff survey, the numbers have been tailing away over the last 3 surveys. Now, the changes are so minuscule, I'm not sure it means anything, except that the direction has been down for the last 2 years in more than half of the things we talked about. So I just throw that out there as something that we'll want to keep an eye on. We had this huge jump up, we maxed out, we peaked, and it's just been kind of trailing away a little bit, which I just think is something to keep our eyes on. Except that, as I say, the changes are so tiny I mean, we're talking hundreds in many of these cases, that it may not mean anything at all.
One of the things that we noted when they did jump, we were very cautious when they jumped, because the big thing that happened right when we were taking the survey was we switched to a 2-week winter break. So I think if we wanted to see numbers jump like that, that would probably be the biggest
Great way to do it.
variable that we
Exactly.
saw, that it jumped so high, and we said, you know, the numbers are great, it would be awesome to say this all has to do with, we made significant changes to our leadership, but we cautioned you at that time that we felt that that had an impact on those numbers going so high. So we do see them kind of back at a level that we feel is more representative of what, and that's why we're going back there, because we feel like that's probably a truer reflection of that, and that 1 year is going to probably be an anomaly, you know, unless we do that again. Which I don't want to have the reason why we did that exist again.
So, anyway, the scores are very high. So. All right. So thank you to Joe.
Thank you very much.
And to our admin team,
Yep.
for your work in meeting your buildings to make that happen.
So we'll move on. Open enrollment survey results, which Tanya already kind of referred to.
And do we just like to do this from year to year to see if there's anything there that can help us as we make decisions moving forward?
I like that you presented it this time, where you can see clearly that, you know, the bulk of it is parental needs. I mean, you're working out of town and it's just not convenient.
Yeah.
I think it makes it quite clear. All right, we'll move on to teaching and learning reports. Anything anybody wants to talk about in the curriculum highlights?
Good luck with all the assessments.
So many tests. It's that season.
All right. General fund interim budget report. Or the food service interim budget report. It's quite encouraging that we might actually have a balanced food budget at the end of the year. Board highlights from the various schools. Comments or questions there? Other than thanks. We have the Brave CLC mid-year site visit report, which was very positive.
You do an amazing job leading that program, and it is highly valued.
So in that case, we're ready to adjourn to executive session. So, is there a motion to do that?
Move to adjourn to, or move to closed session.
And a second. Do they vote?